Bridget.
Hi, Colleen.
I start off everyone the same
That's
way.
okay.
So, as you reflect back on your lesson, how do you think that it went?
I think it went really well. I feel like I was thinking about the prompting because that's what we talked about. So I was trying to provide enough information but not like lead too much. So I think it went well. Looking over the vocabulary words, I think it was sufficiently, like it was allowed her to productively struggle. Some of them she knew in the context of the paper, and then others we really needed to chunk them up even to pronounce them. So I think it went well.
Okay. I think the vocabulary was really good. Like, she was able to pick out all of those, after you gave her some explanation, she was able to give you the definitions.
And one that came up that I didn't anticipate was trot.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that, and so that's one that we actually revisited with a little vocabulary activity we did today, so I was trying to pick out ones.
I did notice in that introduction on how you were introducing the whole activity, you asked, she understood everything except for what a Venn diagram was.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you guided her. She said she had heard of it, but she wasn't sure. And you asked her, if I draw this, so you gave her like a visual, what can you tell me? And then she was able to tell you exactly what it was, basically.
Right, and I feel like those kind of terminologies, like we just came from that session about academic jargon and things, using them in our final paper, and I feel like that's jargon that we all know, but for a student, they just think of the both and the differences, so I think that I just kind of thought of that on the fly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it seemed to make sense to you.
It did. And you asked 8 questions in the introduction, and I don't think any of them were leading. You were asking if you were giving her too much in that section. Absolutely not. I thought you let her discover on her own what was going to happen.
Good.
So what did you see your tutor doing that made you feel like she was meeting the objective?
Well, when she was reading aloud, she was like, she'd be pausing, so I could tell when she was kind of struggling with a word that we would have to maybe take a break from the actual reading and help her pronounce it. And then when she was reading silently, I guess I saw that she was focusing. I kind of forget what I put as my objective, that she was going to be able to put 2 pieces of information, each of the side and then one in the middle. So I think just kind of like discussing the paragraphs after each section that she read was helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we talked about was, would she be able to take the information that she read and place it properly in the Venn diagram, basically, and if she needed assistance, was your questioning too leading, or was it allowing her to discover some of that on her own?
One thing I thought about after the fact, after I taught the lesson, that would have been more effective, would have been to put a similarity first. I think we started out by she put a difference first, and just logically filling out something like this, I probably should have had her look for something of a similarity first, because then I feel like maybe the differences would be more apparent. That's just something that occurred to me when I was writing my reflection on the lesson.
Okay. That could work too. She was able to do it. So.
And I noticed too that sometimes when you're doing those Venn diagrams, you're thinking like, okay, so a cat meows and a dog barks. Like, it doesn't, I was trying to be clear to her that there's not always like an equal, it doesn't have to be the sound that one makes and then the sound that one makes. What one eats and then what the other one eats. You're not always going to find that, especially her going into 5th grade. It's not, maybe in a 1st or 2nd grade they're going to be very explicit with those kinds of things, but I think going into 5th grade you have to be able to be thinking about, well, there's not always going to be an equal match of the 2 things, so maybe there's another difference that I should be looking for.
So I think from what you planned and what I observed and what you're saying is you might make a few minor changes, but other than that, and that's just, your approach to it. I think she was able to find differences and similarities, and with minimal help from you, so I thought that was, that was working. So I have one, you said, now that you know we're talking about Venn diagrams, can you predict what you will have to do in the story? And she said read and tell what's important about both zebras and horses, and what's the same. So she did know she had to figure out the 2. And then when you gave her the paper, you read the directions to her, and she was very clear on what to do. I was just wondering what you thought of, if there's a different way you could go about her understanding what to do. She definitely got what you said, and that's what you were going for, but she is going into 5th grade, so I don't know, I was just thinking if,
Well, I guess I could have done the lesson in a different way. I could have said, what do you do a little, like, what do you know about horses and zebras? That could have been something to just activate a little bit of schema. I could have written the Venn diagram, the picture, what do you know about this structure and how you fill it out? And then I could have presented her with the whole piece, had her read the directions, and then maybe even have her read the whole thing silently, and then see how successful she would have been in that arena. And actually, thinking about that, I might do that tomorrow, because I've been doing a lot of informational text, and I keep thinking about ways that I can, one of the things I discussed with Dr. Lee was ways for her to be more like self-reflective on her own ability to do things without so much guidance, because as she gets older, there's going to be, you know, maybe the teacher role steps back a little bit. So I've been trying to kind of like step back and let her make her own decisions. So just something like that could be another way that I could approach the lesson, I guess.
well, what you had said to me was you wanted me to see if your questions were leading, so I was kind of like looking for that.
Right.
And I just thought, I wonder, you know, when you read the directions to her, I thought, maybe
Yeah.
see if she could
Right.
read them herself and figure out what to do. 'Cause she was very focused, and you know.
Yeah, she's a very good student. I mean, she's a good 2T. Her behavior and everything is always.
Another spot where I had a question was, you said, why don't you read over that last sentence again? And she read it, and you said, does that make sense to you? Which it was a question that had two different vocabulary words. It was, these animals are sociable, though they have never been domesticated, which was two of your stumbling block words, so that was definitely a spot.
I think she didn't get though. I think the though she mispronounced, or she was struggling with though, if I remember it correctly too. Reading the word though.
Maybe, yeah. I was just, also that was just another spot because you were asking me to look at how you were leading, if we could think of a way to do that differently too. Instead of just pointing right out, are you struggling there, by saying, does that sentence make sense to you?
I guess by me saying that, I'm also telling her it doesn't make sense.
Right, that's...
So there definitely is a lead there. The underlying tone is it doesn't make sense. What you just read doesn't make sense, so you need to reread it.
Yeah, that was the second, there was only two spots really where I thought you were leading her. It was when you read the directions and there. So, you know, I just thought we could just explore that. And then, so, I mean, do you think your goal was met for the lesson though?
I think it was. I mean, she was definitely able to pull out the information, which makes me wonder, was the text itself, I mean, I've been working on third grade text with informational, because that's where she tested, but I feel like maybe she's progressing a little bit, because she was able to do it without a lot of assistance. I mean, she pretty much did it independently, so I'm thinking maybe she's, like, maybe mastering this a little bit, so
Yeah,
I'm
so,
seeing it, that's a good thing.
Yeah, very good. So where do you think you could go from here with, you know, being that you're doing the compare and contrast, like, do you have any thoughts about where you're going to go from here?
Well, like I said, maybe I'll do this tomorrow, but instead of, maybe I'll have her do it silently, maybe I'll pick a higher level, like a 4th grade level text. I've been getting some of those texts online where you can set your level, so, and sometimes I've modified them, because I found ones that seemed really interesting, but I've modified them to make the level, her reading level, like lower it a little bit, but maybe I could find one that is 4th grade level and see how she does with that. I wouldn't want to include many more than like 5 words though, because I feel like those are the places where she really starts to struggle. She gets so focused on pronouncing that word that she starts to lose the meaning. So I would try to keep it to maybe like 5 words, especially with the length. I'd probably keep the length the same, but maybe just a little bit of a higher reading level and see what happens there.
So basically what I hear you saying is, you know, you're going to still keep teaching her the Venn diagram, maybe raise the level of text a little bit, and see how much she can do on her own then.
I think that would make sense.
I think she does know the structure.
She seemed like she did once I showed it to her.
Which is good.
But I think that's a really common thing, like in the going forward in these grades, the comparing, contrasting, I feel like is something she's probably going to have to do at some point.
Yeah. Just one more thing, just to let you know what I did. I myself have been looking at the levels of questioning, because I'm trying to raise, you know, as an instructor, I'm trying to rephrase how I ask questions too, and I know we had a conversation about that. So I wanted to give you a copy of the levels of questioning from Bloom's.
Oh, okay.
And it actually gives like examples.
Oh, great,
So
like a sentence stem, a question stem.
Yeah, so even if you want to rephrase, like there was only 2 that I
Yeah.
saw. if you want to rephrase some of them to bring up the level of questioning, that's.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I can keep these?
Yes.
Wow, thank you. What a great coach.
All right, so you know, it was really nice working with you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you know that I was helpful in some way.
You were, you absolutely were. Thank you
I
so
felt
much.
like I learned from you too. You know.
I
it
think
was
this
fun.
whole experience was a really good thing.
All right, so I guess, you know, is there anything else I can do for you?
No, I think
besides
this is
read your
great.
paper?
Thank you for offering me this. I will definitely use these.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yep.